This podcast is brought to you by Amusement Warehouse Magazine, the industry's largest trade publication. We cover amusement parks, carnivals, fairs, festivals, history, safety columns. We really got it all when it comes to the amusement business. Only remaining print publication in the amusement industry on a regular basis. So if you're interested in what the amusement industry has to offer, subscribe today. You can subscribe by logging on to amusementwarehouse.com, carnivalwarehouse.com, or amusementparkwarehouse.com. Welcome to another edition of the Amusement Warehouse Podcast. Today's guest, we're super excited to have the guy, Jared Davis of Wisdom Rides of America. Welcome, Jared.
Hey, thanks, Ron. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad we finally got you. You've been globe-trotting all over the world doing your ride thing and finally able to track you down. That's awesome.
Yeah. Glad it finally worked out for us here. So
that's amazing. So Wisdom Rides of America, I see you get the logo behind you.
Yes.
Set up nicely. Way to go. Yeah. Very professional. I like that. So what generation are you, Jared? How many, when did Wisdom get started initially? And what was the impetus for getting started? I'm diving right in, I guess.
Yeah. So it started in 1914.
Wow.
It started out with the carousel. I don't know where they originally got the carousel. Some of the stories is they got it out of a storage unit auction in Sidney, Nebraska. If you look through some of the old newspapers and stuff like that, you see even here locally in our little town in the early 1900s, there was ads for carousels for sale. So they could have bought it from there. Maynard Wisdom R.T. Dowis and his brother-in-law, Forsyth had a Ferris wheel. He used to go out just with the carousel. He went out with the Ferris wheel. They eventually partnered up and started going out together and growing a carnival to a show that was Forsyth and Dowis Rides.
That's pretty cool. I was talking to Doc Rivera about some history, and I'd actually been reading the Conklin book that was just published, and I didn't realize, but really there were no, besides a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round, there were really no rides until way past the turn of the century. So it was, I thought there was something, but it was basically all shows, a Ferris wheel and a carousel.
Yeah, right. I have old pictures in the 1930s where they would open up the generator unit, and it was all polished, and that was part of the show. That was something people came and wanted to see was the generator, this portable power, this electricity that you could take anywhere. And so it was really, anything that they could hype things up with, they used.
Yeah, it was amazing because people barely had power at their houses, or at least it was a little, skittish when they had it. They could power a whole town basically with a portable generator, which was amazing, I guess, at that time too, is what Doc was saying.
Yeah, and it's kind of the transition too. A lot of them we carried a transformer unit. So we had the generator unit and a transformer unit where they would just throw hooks on the power lines in the cities that had them, one on each line, and then use the transformer to convert that power to run the rides.
That's pretty neat. So Wisdom and Dowis was basically a carnival, or when did you transition into the ride manufacturing type?
Yeah, so Forsyth and Dowis Rides was a carnival. Very successful, very large. Cheyenne Frontier Days, Greeley Stampede, all the major Midwest spots were ours. And at the time, kind of in the area, it'd been Wright Brothers, which is Ring and Ring now. That would have been kind of the only competition in the Midwest area at the time. Sometime in the 1940s, 1950s, as the story goes, is Jerry got tired of, and Larry got tired of the Ferris wheel operator, because everything was just, bolted together, thrown in a trailer, it was just all ground mount. And they got tired of him because he was a drunk, highest paid guy and never showed up. It took 3-4 days to put the wheel up, 3-4 days to move it. It was just, they just got sick of it. So they just started cutting up the Ferris wheel one winter in the winter quarters, and they walked in and throughout the entire winter trailer mounted what was the Wisdom mount Ferris wheel. And then it went from that to doing, I think an octopus was a second ride, trailer mounting that, and just kind of kept snowballing. Then other people came to them. Can you do ours? Can you do ours? Things, just moving on the road and trying to trailer mount stuff just didn't, both of them didn't work together. So as my grandfather always said, he went from a very successful carnival owner to a very poor manufacturer overnight and transitioned into manufacturing.
So portability was really the name of the game with them. Were they the, like, I guess you could study it and replicate it, but were they pretty much the go-to guys for doing that sort of thing initially?
Yeah, at the time. Yeah, I don't know that there really was anybody else doing it at the time. There was some people down in Texas doing it shortly thereafter, some back east in the Pennsylvania area, but he really just steamed ahead with it. Eventually did the tilt. I think the first Gibtown trade show that they did was one of the first Gibtown trade shows, brought the tilt and set it up in, a couple hours and tore it down, just set it up and tore it down all day long for the entire trade show. And that's kind of was the catalyst of the booming of the manufacturing side.
Now, of course, keeping with tradition, you still do that with all your equipment, right, at Gibtown?
I'd love to.
Set up and tear down.
Yeah. Most of the equipment that we brought over the years have, it's a little bit more, but you never know. In the near future, next year or the year after, we may just be doing that up and down throughout the entire
down all the time.
Yeah.
Portability is so important nowadays. I mean, even more probably then it was super important, but now it's essential to be able to move that equipment quickly and get it over the road and use as few people as possible, hopefully to accomplish that. So, so the portability business, when did that sort of morph into, making your own rides?
I think shortly thereafter, after the first 3 or 4 trailer mounting, and then it became, some internal designs, some designs that were brought to us, and things like that. And then obviously we had the Sizzler, which was a great success that was brought to us. And we redefined the Gravitron, which everybody, owns one, that was, brought to us and, redesigned it and put the flash on it and then made it what it is today.
Yeah, is that the most popular piece you've made over the years? I mean, that's a signature piece for you for sure.
Very much so. Yeah, that's probably one of the, I wouldn't say the most. Coasters are probably the most quantity wise.
Dragon Wagon or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Dragon Wagons, the Super Loops, the China Dragon, just everything throughout the years. The number of coasters I wouldn't even know. Over 1,000 have been built.
Wow.
Where you have 300-400 Gravitrons, 300-400 Sizzlers, 300-400 Tornadoes. Those have all been, kind of the big hits.
That's pretty interesting. So I didn't even realize. So the Gravitron, there's already something like a Gravitron out there before you guys made the portable version, or what we know today.
Well, no, it was brought to us. So the original design was brought to us, and it was canvas walls. It was actually run by a tractor, so that was the drive. You set the ride up, and then the semi you pulled it with, you backed up and jacked up, and then you just ran through the gears underneath the turntables with the drive axles, and that's what spun it around. So that's where it all started.
That's pretty neat. When was the Gravitron sort of invented? When was the first one?
I believe it was the 80s. It would have been in the 80s.
Oh, really? So it's fairly new.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, 40-ish, 45.
Doesn't seem like it's that
years
long
old. Yeah.
That's really neat. So did the carnival go away when they got into the manufacturing business? Did they slowly?
Yeah. So the carnival was sold. The route was sold and the equipment was sold. So that was after Jerry and Elaine took over. And so after Elaine's father passed away, they took over the show, and then they ended up selling it and becoming, the full-time manufacturing here in Northeast Colorado. And so kind of interesting on that is it's always been based in Northeast Colorado in some fashion, and whether it was the carnival or the manufacturing now.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, we all know Wisdom as a manufacturer, and I think I might have heard at one time there was a carnival that you developed from, but it's not something you think about every day, or good to refresh your memory. Have you,
Right.
when you grew up, were you fascinated with kind of the history of your family and what they did and where they got started and how they did it?
Oh, very much so. I really, the family lineage and stuff like that. Anytime there's old photos or somebody else has a photo, I'm like, hey, let me grab that. Let me get some, professional copies done. Let me get it mounted. Throughout my house, I have photos, from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s of the
Wow.
carnival set up in different major locations throughout Colorado. And, just talking about old stories with my grandfather when he was alive and things like that. That was really what drew me into the industry.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, your grandfather, and then you bought the company from Victor Wisdom, right? From when?
Yeah. So we did. Yeah. So Victor retired, and then we did a kind of some restructuring and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm. And you took over the everything that's been Wisdom. You still kind of manufacture, right? I mean, just about every carnival, every sort of smaller park, and everybody has a Wisdom ride of one sort or another. It's really it's like when you walk around. I mean, now that I know who owns things, and when you're watching a movie or doing something else, there's always a Wisdom ride involved in some aspect of the business. When you see it, almost everybody has one. Everybody has something.
Yeah, and it's kind of been a staple in the industry, and they make money. That's kind of at the end of the day. Everything has whatever its quirks and everything else, but our rides make money. They're not duds. So I think that's really what's the driver for purchases are.
And they make money because they're portable and they're easy to move, and all those other things too, obviously.
Yeah, and people ride them. That's the thing. They grab tickets. People like being on our rides. Family liked being on our rides. I think we hit a really good target audience. And I mean, you have the big extreme rides, which are great. And you have the real small kiddie rides. But I think the biggest thing is we try to make sure adults can ride in everything that we have. So it's basically, that 5-6-year-old to adult range on every ride. And we produced, like our Monster Destruction. We produced that and, thinking it would be just a little kiddie ride. Well, I go out on the midway and teenagers are riding it. So, and parents with their adults. So it's, they grab tickets and they make money.
Yeah. Actually, I said back in the day, if you have a really small show with just a couple of rides, just about the perfect ride to own is the Tornado, the Wisdom Tornado, because it's a little bit of thrill. It's a little bit of family can ride together. It's got like a little something for everyone with that piece. It's really kind of hits all the buttons.
Yeah. And that was invented by Larry Wisdom, which was Jerry's brother. Larry still operated rides up until the time that he passed away at the Texas State Fair, Minnesota State Fair, Wisconsin, when was independent and back. Des Moines, Iowa, stuff like that. And the Tornado is a great hit because it's user, the user determines, the patron determines how much of a thrill ride they actually have. If it's a bunch of tweens on there and they want to spin it and get sick, awesome. And if it's a family with their little kids, they can just putz around and all grabbing it, running at the same time. So
so the whole family. I mean, if you have a grandma wants to ride it with a little kid, it doesn't have to be so dramatic, but it gives you a little bit of a thrill. Or if a teenager wants to ride it, they could spin till their heart's content. And it was a great. I know you don't keep track of it. It's got just about every carnival has one, right? I mean, it's pervasive.
Yeah. We actually just delivered one last night to Ricky Moore's Gritter Shows. Brand new Tornado to him, got delivered like 10 o'clock last night to him on their midway, and they're setting it up today. And I don't know what number that is, but it's like 300 and something. So they're around, everybody's had one or two or three over the years.
Yeah, that must be a great. I imagine when you invent something and then you bring it through production, and hope it's going to be a hit. Well, you had the benefit, I guess, of testing a little bit with the people that actually operated a show, but once it hits, it's got to be a great feeling. And then to become such an enormous hit, it's like, having a platinum record in in music or something like that. It just, everybody buys one, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I mean, Amusement Warehouse should have a, that's what they should be issuing, like YouTube or music, does now. So you should be sending out, awards. So get to talk about that one.
Well, I remember when the High Roller came out. Because it was in the Florida State Fair, and it had a great location. It was during the trade show and everything else, and they got a ton of orders from it. Now the ride didn't do that well, in all honesty, afterwards, but the initial buzz about it and people liking it, it was like they were all flocking to buy one. But your ride, the Tornado, and of course the Sizzler and the Gravitron, and of course the kiddie coasters have stood the test of time. I mean, you have to have one. You can't operate a show without a dragon wagon or something similar, right? Even if it's not your ride, something like that has to be on a carnival. Just, you don't know of too many that don't even have it.
Yeah, exactly. And like the Tornadoes are, they're pup loads. That's kind of the interesting thing too, is, the driving of the creation of rides were determined by the needs at the time. And so when the Tornado was done, having a pup load, being able to pull doubles with everything, that was huge. That was a big thing. And it was, fuel, tires, just all that was the big issue. What I'm hearing from customers today, those are still issues, but the biggest issue is in our industry is labor and the availability of it. It doesn't matter whether you get it there or not. If you can't set it up, it doesn't do you any good. And so they, making things that are easy to set up, like our Avalanche or Genesis, 45 minutes to an hour, couple guys to set it up, tear it down. The Y Factor, 45 minutes, up, 45 minutes down. Our new rental wheel, about an hour up, hour down, things like that, where it just takes a couple people that you can train quickly to do it. Our one truck Himalaya, we just delivered a beautiful one to Del Mar, to the San Diego County Fair, to the Talley family, a couple weeks ago. And it's a beautiful piece, but handling pieces and things like that become very, it's the labor thing. So we actually made it a 2-truck because it's easier for him to find another driver than it is to find a couple extra people to set up and tear down. So we redid the racking and everything to make it easier for him.
Yeah, sometimes they make them so compact that it's actually a little more complicated to get things just right and pull things out and not hurt the equipment when it's going in and out in tight spaces and things like that. So it's interesting because if the drivers are available, it's not so bad to have an extra half a load or a pup load or whatever else to move something.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the one truck Himalaya is great. Everything fits on there in racks. You just have to handle the cars twice when you're setting it up and tearing it down. And it's just a little bit more labor intensive than, using a forklift and pulling them out of the back of a trailer. So
that's pretty neat. So what are some of the most, how many like one-off, I know you made like that giant slide for Wade shows back in the day. Mm-hmm. How many of those, sort of unique or one-off or close to one-off rides have you made? Anything interesting in the past that you've researched or know about yourself?
Well, so you might be shocked. Actually, our ride portfolio is probably somewhere around 46 to 53 unique rides.
Really?
Yeah, and that's not rethemings or anything like that. Those are unique designs. So there's always the one-offs. They're never intended to be a one-off, or right. That design you want to, do whatever you can. So we try to, obviously repetitive is the goal, but it doesn't always happen. So
I know, I was thinking about maybe like the Astroliner you had for a while, right? Didn't you? It was.
Yeah, the Astroliner, and actually we built there for like 3 years. My understanding is one left the shop. So like week 1 of the month, a Gravitron would leave. Week 2, an Astroliner would leave throughout the entire year. So every week a ride was leaving, whether it was an Astroliner or a Gravitron. And all the way up, it was like 2 years, 3 years run of that. And then all of a sudden it's like it turned off overnight. They had like 3 or 4 that they had in prospect that they just kept the production line going, and it took them forever to get rid of them. And but yeah, it's a great piece. We are working on some comparable type item coming out here soon. So, maybe it revives, maybe it doesn't. So.
Oh, ones that you could push out that has big capacity like that. What did it hold, like 40,
Yeah.
right? I think an Astroliner or something like that. It was
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. So we're looking at a capacity about 50 to 60.
Wow.
And it'll be on a different platform. It won't be on the Astroliner platform, but we're in talks with a couple different companies of partnering on the VR type stuff, or the filming and things like that. So
Yeah, there's great things you could do. I mean, I don't know what that film cost to produce back when you made it. I don't know when that was, the 80s or the 90s, but it was probably high tech at the time. But now you look back, you're like, what the heck is that?
yeah, they take the little clay models and they move them one piece at a time, and each frame, and oh man, they're so cheesy now. It's like so cheesy, but they're I mean, that's what it was, and I don't know that the films were any cheaper back then that they are now. It's just the quality is way better now.
Quality is way better right now. So quite a few different rides that you've made over the years. I mean, the slide still, the big slide that you made for Wade is still traveling, still plays state fairs, does really well.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it the reason you don't make more of them? Was it just the pain, or you don't get orders from it, or it's
well, obviously didn't get orders,
worth doing one?
Yeah, it wasn't. They were not, turning away orders at the time.
I guess there's only like a couple, 3 of those giant slides, no matter the manufacturer out there, really. But they're great pieces. They make a lot of money. They do well.
They do well, and then they're great. It's just that extra little booking piece when you're putting in your proposal. But it doesn't make for smaller shows or mid-sized shows, it makes no economical sense for them to purchase a piece like that and move it every week.
No, but as hot as those wheels are for rentals, a slide like that would be a good piece for a person to buy if they could get the setup and teardown going well, because that those are the 2 rides that really do well at like a festival or something where you just have 1 piece or 2 pieces.
Yeah. The nice thing, the difference between the slide and the Ferris wheel is the Ferris wheel has so much booking power for the rental industry, where it's a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a kid's birthday party and stuff like that, where adults aren't going to ride slides, or a corporate event, they're not going to have a slide for their people to go on. It's just not really a good fit, where the Ferris wheel is very iconic.
It is definitely iconic. So when you took over the Wisdom name and legacy, what were some of the goals you set for yourself to transform the company or change the company?
Yeah,
it's vision.
COVID obviously took care of some of the vision, but
you were right before COVID, right? You took over. It's hard to remember things that they happen in relation to COVID, but
October of 2018 is when I took over. So COVID was shortly thereafter, and
you're in a couple months.
Yeah. I mean, is when it all started. I mean, just everything happened. It is what it is now. And so, I guess visions and goals, it's just listening to the customers and meeting the industry demand. And, just being able to push forward and keep doing what we're doing. I love the industry. I love the people in the industry. It's great. You can't beat it. And so it's good. And, I was just trying to maintain and enhance that. So,
well, you had a little bit of initiative to try and work with parks a little bit more than you had in the past, I think. So going down that road.
Yeah. So we made some partnerships to offer some broader range of park rides that we don't currently offer. That's a good thing. It's a little different world, little different product offering, and but it's been it's good, and it also helps us bolster our design and engineering going forward here.
Yeah, I guess the sales window is a lot longer with a park than it is with if you're selling a major piece as opposed to a carnival, that's something you made already, or sometimes they want custom designs and it has to fit in a certain footprint and it has to do all those things that you don't necessarily have to do with, getting tornadoes out the door.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a transition in the carnival side of things too, is everything went from a production level. You got a Gravitron and it was, you picked the color of the panel and that was kind of it, or there was panels done and you got the red or you got the yellow or you got the green,
Right.
whatever it was. And now it went from production to custom where, customers are picking every single color and every point, and which is great. It's just a different level of throughput and ability for throughput when everything's, I want DuPont paint versus PPG or whatever it is. And we try to really meet whatever the customer's demands are in that area.
Yeah, the customization that's an interesting thing to me, because it was like the food trailers used to, got to be that way, and people would custom design every little piece that they had there. And then, when we go to what we call the carnival trade show as opposed to IAPA in Orlando, but we go to the carnival trade show, some people over the last 10 or 15 years would grouse, oh, there's not as many rides as there used to be. There's not as many rides as there used to be. And when Selner was still around, I was interviewing her, and she said, we used to build a red tilt-a-whirl, and that was it. And so we bring a red tilt-a-whirl. I was the only one. We'd sell it, and we could, bring it here on spec. But like you say, now with the customization, they want a certain kind of light. They want a certain paint color. They want a different name for the ride. They want to, to theme it in a certain way. So that makes it really tough to build anything on spec, because, they're going to say, oh, I like it, but I want it to be purple, or I like it, but I want to have this thing on it. So that really, I think, was the major driving force behind bringing spec rides to the trade show. So I remember people used to make deals on Sunday. They'd walk through on the last day of the show, and they'd have some cash or whatever left over, and they'd say, hey, how much for that thing? And I'll give you whatever, 75% or 50% of what the asking price was, and they do well. But that went away. But I don't think it went away because of popularity. I think it went away, like you just pointed out, because of the changing times and the changing situation.
Yeah, very much so. Jerry and Vic, they used to bring 4 or 5 spec rides to Gibtown every year for 40 years. I mean, it was just, people would take it and they would sell them and it would be great. But now you have the wrong lighting. You have the wrong light bulb in there. You have the wrong puck light. And because the show's all one brand or one program, and and that makes sense. It's I don't want another one. I don't want another thing to carry. I want orange instead of red because it's going on this unit instead of that colored unit, and things like that. And you just can't do it because it. Yeah. Vic built a Himalaya on spec, and it was very hard for him to sell it afterwards because it was painted the wrong color. I remember he sat on it for almost a year. And I think that was the last spec ride that was taken down there.
Yeah, I mean, but if you could have sold spec rides, you'd still be bringing spec rides. I mean, I'm a big
believer. It'd be great. Yeah,
and I don't think people do things because they're crazy or lazy or something. I mean, in most cases, if you could sell a ride, you'd bring it down and you'd sell it. So if you were selling, maybe you could get away with it with a like a dragon wagon or something like that, if it's a green coaster or whatever, an Orient Express. Right. But even those are pretty custom nowadays too, with the difference. So it's tough to do, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but does the customer already have the Orient Express, or do they have the the Dragon Wagon? And so if they have one or the other, and they don't, it takes out half your buyers right there.
And then you complicate it to the seats. Are the seats big enough to do the adults, or is it just the kiddie seats that you have? You have the different sizes, and different.
Yeah. We do only do the adult seats, but it all kind of compiles to where you can't do it anymore. Economics too, cash flowing. I think the Sizzlers used to be $70,000, $80,000. That's one thing. Cash flowing 4, 5, 6, 900 million. It's just on speculation is not a very good business decision.
Yeah, I can't believe how much the prices have changed. But it's with everything. You sound like a 90-year-old man. You say, I can't believe when I was a kid, the movies were a quarter or whatever. But, like a ride that even when I was sort of in that part of the business, I knew what something cost. And I asked, I think the last trade show, like a common ride, I don't want to single anybody out, but it's a, ride that everybody has. And I was like, how much are one of those now? And I mean, I almost fell down. I was like, I couldn't believe how much they go for now. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard on our end too. Somebody asked me, how much is a Gravitron or how much is a Genesis? And I have to say, I have to get back to you unless I, just shipped the ride last week. We got to go through and check steel, hydraulics, electrical, labor, and recalculate everything because it's difficult. It's changing, every day, every week, and things price wise, I think have stabilized a little bit. They're not going up, 30, 40, 50% every week like they have been the last couple of years. But then you run into stuff where they can charge for it. The lead times are, 18 months to 2 years out for some of the products that we use, and they can charge triple for it. It doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, there was a time, just right after the pandemic, I said people should have one of those big LED boards behind them with the changing price. Like every 5 minutes, the price of steel would go up and up higher, and it was crazy because not just you, but everybody, when they ordered something, they thought the price of steel was this, or they thought the price of components was that, and it would change so rapidly. You could really get burned by taking an order at a certain price or making a deal. By the time you go to order the parts, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. And we've lost money on deals, recently, and it's just what it is. It's the nature of the market. And so it's tough. It's a tough time to be on the manufacturing side of things.
Yeah, it really is. And that's sort of one thing that I know you had to go through. I mean, I didn't even think of the timeline with 2018 late, and then 2020, you got hit with the pandemic, and you were, I think you just introduced that Y factor, right? That just came out just before the pandemic, didn't it? The first,
just before the pandemic. Yeah. Yep. The Y factor.
Because I remember Vic bringing it there.
I think 2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
2018. It might have been 2018. Yeah.
And you're doing real well. And then the pandemic hits, and especially with the number of offerings of rides like you have, it's a lot of different parts, a lot of different pieces, a lot of different things you got to keep track of and order when you build a new one. And people got through the pandemic with orders and everything else. And then, like sourcing that stuff, we've had plenty of conversations, privately, but getting that stuff is a nightmare. It was a nightmare for you. You had to really go, out of your way to get stuff. And it's not just here, it's Europe too. I mean, I know there's one Italian manufacturer that a friend of mine ordered a ride from. They just sent them a letter saying they're not going to get it for another year, on top of what they're doing. So when you, maybe, talk a little bit about the, what a frustrating it is when you build 3/4 of a ride and then you're waiting on one stupid but essential thing that you can't get for a little while. It's got to be.
Oh, it's very frustrating, and it makes you look like an idiet. It's
What do you mean you can't get a widget?
Exactly. We recently, it happens a lot, and so especially with the big rides, we were working on a one truck Himalaya for the same friend you just mentioned, and they had I can't remember what we were missing. They sent us an inverter, but the inverter was bad. It was missing, or one of the capacitors inside was fried. And they're like, hey, it'll be here next week. It'll be here next week. It'll be here next week. It was like 9 months. Well, this ride's consuming my entire shop. I can't even tear it down. I can't move it. We kind of jockeyed some stuff around, but it's, it takes up 50, 60% of my production area. And it just plugs up the entire thing. And not only that, it plugs up the ride behind it, the ride behind it, the ride behind it. And, whether it's labor or space and things like that. And it's just, it's a horrible, horrible situation where, it just messes up our entire timeline. And then I look, it's like they're telling me it's here next week or it's here in a month. And then, they come at me and they're like, well, you said it was going to be here. I was like, well, that's what they told me. And our hands are tied. I can't create a capacitor. I don't have a chip manufacturer. I can't go make the chip for the inverter. I can't go make hydraulics. I don't understand why that's been such an issue and still an issue today. Even, some of the hydraulic cylinders, some of the steel mills shut down. And so the raw materials for the core of the hydraulic cylinders, they said, yeah, we're just not going to make it anymore because we can make more money making this type of steel out of this facility. And so some of the cylinders went from a 1 week lead time to a 68 to 86 week lead time.
Wow. I know they at times we were outsourcing a lot of the manufacturing to other countries and other places. And then, with the pandemic, couldn't get stuff coming over. It was a nightmare. I know electronics was a big thing too for a long time. Getting different electronic pieces was a nightmare, from all over the world.
Yeah. Even the simple stuff, even we try not to use anything that's, spaceship ready, and, just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to work on and use, and you just can't get it. So then you're trying to substitute, an Eaton inverter for a Sumitomo inverter, or a Siemens or whatever. And then does it have the same inputs? Well, now you got to redesign the wiring for the ride because it's not the same inputs or the same number of outputs. And you have to grab, information from different areas on the ride to make it work. And it's, so you get the part that's great, but then you have a month of just redesign trying to make that one part that you could get work. And it just all, combines in all the issues.
It's kind of like almost like I don't know how much experience you have, but like laying out a lot. Like somebody will come up to you and say, "Hey, can I move this over here instead of over there?" And then it seems like it's fine, like you're just gonna move it 10 feet or something like that. But then it affects that thing that was next to it, and then the same kind of stand was next to it, and then before you know it, you got a disaster on your hands with everything, because everything affects something else. And production is really a fascinating thing. And when I was in school, in MBA school, we studied a little bit about production and throughput and things like that. And there's one book I read, I think it was like The Game or something like that. It was really interesting how, one thing out of line affects all the other things down the line. And it has such a big ripple effect. And it's hard to understand when you're not there or studying it or knowing what it is, because you think, well, my thing just wasn't there, my thing needs another thing, and that's all it is. But that's not all it is, because like you said, if it's sitting in your shop floor, that's shop floor space you can't use. Or if it's sitting somewhere else, and then you say you look like an idiot because you might have guessed wrong on which parts would come in first, but it was a guess, right? You were throwing all these things at once, and you're like, well, I think I'm going to get the capacitor in time before I'm going to get that thing. And it turns out it was the other way around. But what do you do? What do you do at that point?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's, we're operating with the best information that we're given. And the information we're given is not very good. I'll tell you that much. It's proven itself over and over again. And, it's gotten to the point, it's like, when's it going to be done? I don't know. Because I can't, you can't trust anybody up the line to give you the real information. And it's not just us, you get into the big manufacturers. We partnered with Hydac, which is one of the largest hydraulic companies in the world, on some stuff, and talking to them and their, their VPs and things like that. And they provide parts for, all the scissor lifts where they're making 500 a week and things like that. And they said, it's the same thing everywhere you go, every industry. Our biggest downfall is we don't have the buying power. I'm not buying 100,000 widgets. And so if another manufacturer, Ford, comes in and says, I need that same widget, I need, 100,000 of them, Ford's going to get theirs before I get the 2 that I need to finish your ride. And it's just how the system works.
Yeah, it's really dead. But things are starting to, you just mentioned before, you just got a couple of rides out the door, so things are starting to even out a little bit.
I wouldn't say even out. It's just, things, the last few months are starting to fall, God's grace has fallen on us a little bit to get some stuff that we've been waiting on. And, but it's still a struggle every day. It's, our purchasing's working overtime every week. They're putting in, 5, 6, 7 days a week they're working. Sometimes I go over and they'll be working. I'll be monitoring something. And I'm like, well, this email came in at 2:30 in the morning because they're working at home trying to, source a different part from overseas or something like that, just trying to get what we need to get these orders out. So, but things are getting better. They're coming through. We, like I mentioned, we delivered Tally's Himalaya to Del Mar. Ricky Moore got a tornado last night. Steve Matfield will get his coaster here about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Are you only delivering to the West Coast?
What's that?
Are you only delivering to the West Coast?
Well, Ricky Moore, Midwest. So yeah, it's their turn. The East Coast got their turn, so now it's the West Coast turn.
And you've got some more stuff coming, I imagine.
Yeah. We making progress on the new Sizzler. That's another thing. We had it all designed, had issues, had to do redesigns on it, scrapped a bunch of stuff, redone it, and then we had gearbox that we needed. Getting the gearboxes that clear now is not possible. So it's another, we've had to come up with, when we came up with a great solution, that was an easy fix, but now we're waiting on the new gearboxes from the previous design we had, 3 weeks ago. And so hopefully we'll get the first one out there here shortly, and the rest will just, the nice thing is with the new design of that, those will just start falling out really easy. So
that's going to be hopefully a hot piece for you, right? The Sizzler. Would talk about some of the improvements you made.
Yeah, so some of the improvements, it doesn't have tubular structure anymore. So, long term, people used to keep the rides, 10 years, 15 years, and then replace it because they could economically. Now you can't. So people are holding on to rides longer. So obviously long-term corrosion issues and things like that are prevalent in our industry. So it's all open frame where you don't have any of the corrosion issues, electric drive instead of hydraulic drive. So you don't run into, spilling any of the ecological stuff on parking lots and have to pay for cleanups and things like that. So yeah, and it's still going to be easy to move. We've done some other proprietary improvements to increase the longevity of the ride. So that way you don't have some of the known issues that cause longevity issues with the prior model Sizzlers.
Were those pre-pandemic designs?
It was worked on through the pandemic and then afterwards. And so, but then it comes down to just, all the pieces falling in. And unfortunately that's just one thing that didn't fall in like the other ones did. So,
yeah, I know pre-pandemic you had, there were some safety things too. We talked, I can't even remember specifically what it was, but you had so many different things you were working on at once. And it seems like, and I'm sure those things will come back as priorities, but that it changed your focus, I guess, the pandemic, that now you just, things that you took for granted. I can push a scrambler at the door. A Sizzler at the door, no big deal. Now it's a monumental task in some ways.
It is. And, wake up every morning and, it's a joke because I walk into the office every morning. It's like, what's the problem today? As soon as I show up, there's gotta be something because, it's not going smooth today. And which is good. This industry is known, for its perseverance through all kinds of good times, bad times, and everything else. And so, it's just wake up and, do the best we can, with all the best intentions and push forward.
Well, one, I think, great thing that's happened recently is you've made a deal with Showman Supplies to service your parts, right? Which is something nice to get off your plate.
Yeah. So that's a great thing. Just like all our customers have, labor's an issue. Just getting somebody to learn the systems, the parts, and everything else. I was actually thinking about this morning. Everybody knows Walt. Walt was, there for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, and he knew every part of every ride. And you can call, and the guy could say, I need the pin on the top left of the Viper, and okay, no questions, no measurements, no nothing, and you got the right part the next day. But retraining that workforce is very difficult, and then the supply chain, and then so now you're fighting the supply chain and the labor just to even get stuff out the door. So Our partnership with Showman Supply is actually, I'm really excited about. They've actually already been able to get a bunch of shipments out of the door. The last count, talking to Scott and Jason over there the other day, was like 150 orders or 150 line items they'd be able to get out the door already, of back ordered stuff and new orders. So they're actually doing a really good job about, just they're getting it done.
Yeah, you got enough headaches with just building the rides, and then you had on top of it, you had the part headaches. So you kind of got a double whammy.
Right. Yeah. And it'll help, also help our production side too. So it doesn't, because before you may call and order a car frame. We just did a new set of car frames for a customer, and, so it's, the shop floor gets stopped, everything gets stopped, the car frame gets done because that's where it fit in at the moment, and things like that. Partnering with Showman and some of the fabrication abilities they have, that we're able to alleviate that smaller stuff that's penetrates our production time and production capabilities. And so they're able to kind of backfill that need for us. And they'll also be able to backfill some of the production stuff that we'll use in production. So they'll make 10,000 of something and we'll get, hey, I need 500 of them. And so it's just one less thing on my plate.
That's great. So it's a nice synergy you have with them where you're getting help on sort of both ends of things. That's great. And they're able to produce some stuff that otherwise would be kind of a nuisance to you, to stop production on a big ride, to build a couple smaller parts or whatever. So it's good to have people that are suited to do what they're set up for. Yeah.
It's actually really exciting. So I think it was a good move, and really good for both of us and for the customers. At the end of the day, it can be good for us, but that doesn't matter. It's what's best for our customers. And, they're going to be able to have somebody to call. They have, a whole staff to answer the phone and things like that. So it's going to be good.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And to have that off your plate right now, so you can concentrate on the production side of things is great too. So
yeah,
now you don't have the part and the building side yelling at you. You just have one side yelling at
you. Right. Yeah.
Take care of things. Well, double the headaches. It really was.
It is.
So you've been doing a lot lately with wheels, right? Wheels and the rental business and stuff with your partners. Has that been a big focus for Wisdom, especially sort of internationally or on the park side of things?
Yeah. So, right now, really this entire year, the focus has been getting our backlog orders out, focusing on the current production. That's where my focus is. And some of those are the rental wheels. We have one on the shop floor that hopefully ships here next couple weeks. And then we have some more. I think I have 3 or 4 more, I believe we're taking 2 to Gibtown, possibly.
How tall are those?
So they're 38 foot.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a new design. We actually took the original, kind of the original concept that Jerry and Larry came up with, and updated it and repurposed it for the setup teardown. But you press a button to set it up.
Really?
The only thing you handle, the only thing you touch is the cars, and they're aluminum, and one guy can move them. So it's completely push button setup. I mean, I don't know that you can make it any easier.
The Ferris wheel union workers are not going to like that.
Yeah, no. It's not going to be friendly for them, but it's great. And you can tow it with a pickup if you want to, like a 5500 or something like that. Still tow it with a semi, and it's just really easy to set up. So
that's what you're talking about for like weddings and birthday party. I was thinking of like a giant wheel. I was like, who the heck is renting a 100-foot wheel for a bar mitzvah or something? But you're talking about like a rental wheel.
Yeah, or a rental wheel. So you still have the big, I mean, people still rent the big wheels for big corporate events and things like that.
Sure.
And there's a market
Music
for that,
festivals,
so.
things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these are designed more for a little bit unusual, but yet celebrations, I guess, that they're willing to rent a wheel for it.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's actually a huge market out there for them. The people that are in the market do very well. They're booked constantly. There's constantly requests for them, whether they're partnering with somebody else. And that's where our sales actually really come from is one rental company may have a wheel. And it may just be a Eli High Five or something like that. And so they partner with somebody else, put it on their website for the rentals, and they get so many calls. They're like, I can't afford to keep paying, Joe for his wheel every week. I just need to buy my own. And ours is way easier to set up and move than any of the other wheels on the market. So
now, is one of those sort of half affordable? Can you get into one without spending your life?
Yeah,
saving?
so they're under 300,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Can't buy anything for under 300,000.
No. It's the only piece I really know of besides a really small kiddie ride. And even those, you're still pushing 300. So, but yeah, you're looking, under 300, depending on options. If you get the LED screens on the side and things like that, custom lighting packages, that all goes back to the customization thing. And it also depends on their market too. So if they're selling or renting to colleges that needs to be, burnt orange for Tennessee or, the Florida Gators or, whatever, they can change the colors of it. So.
That's great. Have you put quite a few of those out? Or are people getting, and these are not people that are already in the industry per se. They're new.
None of them are in the industry. None
Yeah.
of them are in the industry. Yeah. They're just, they're rental companies. And so they're not, they're in the industry, but not the traditional industry as we would picture it.
And what's the setup time for something like that?
45 minutes to an hour.
That's fast.
So,
I mean, so they could legitimately take it to like a big, like a sport event or something like that, and make a few dollars. It's almost like an ice cream truck or something like that. It's like you can get into the business.
Yeah, but I think the rental rates are actually really worth the squeeze is worth the juice, as they say.
Or a combo of maybe taking a chance at a bigger event and just charging to go on, I guess, too, and when you don't happen to have a rental one weekend or something like that, you might go somewhere and try to
go somewhere. Yeah. You could set it up in a parking lot. Talked to another individual the other day, and it's you have the rentals, and he was talking about another ride for rentals. I was like, you can't take that ride and just go set it up in a shopping mall by itself and make money, but a Ferris wheel you can, as a standalone. A Gravitron I don't think is going to win you any money sitting in a shopping mall by itself, but kids will get on the Ferris wheel. And so
something about a wheel. I did a couple music festivals in the past, and they would want several different rides, but it was always the wheel that made all the money. I mean, all the money, just about. It didn't matter what you put there. It was, quite a few things. So wheel's great. I mean, what about inspections though? Do you still have to get inspected in most states with a wheel like that?
Yeah, so it's still an amusement ride. You still have to do inspections,
Mm-hmm.
Still have to be insured and things like that. Every jurisdiction has their own requirements. There's probably some different variances in inspections for jurisdictions, whether it's a private event or a paid event and things like that. But still,
maybe if it's a private event, you don't have to get inspected. Yeah, I know some of those guys that are, sort of sub carnival size or whatever you want to call it, sub rental guys. They're just really small one-off guys. Set up sometimes that I'm not so sure inspections are done every single time, or that especially like you open on a Saturday, the inspector's not going to come out, so it makes it a little difficult. But I think most states probably you need an inspection. That's the wheels. So that's specific to that size, the rental thing that you're doing. It's 38-foot wheel.
Yeah, we call it our rental wheel, but yeah, it's a pickup load, push button setup, push button tear down. 2 guys, you can train anybody. You don't have to have a wheel operator. That's a nice thing. Like you can train anybody to operate it. You don't have to have somebody, that specialized
knew
it,
the
been doing
old
it in 10 years. Right. Yeah. You don't have to worry about throwing a cable or anything like that. Or
things back in the day. That's really
you
really
don't have to worry about truing it. You don't even have to true the wheel. When you set it up, it's all done by itself. So it's really a good setup.
That's great. And you have high hopes for that.
I do. Yeah. I mean, it's a different avenue of things, and a little different market. So yeah, so it's great that we get that out there.
That's
and maybe at Giptown we'll be setting it up this year. Set it
up and down with the button.
Yeah. Every 2 hours, once up, once down. And are you going to come help, right?
Absolutely. I can press a button.
There you go. So
that's really neat. So you're moving forward with certain aspects of it, catching up on the other side of things. Still, is the park business still on the radar a little bit? Moving into that side with your partners, or
yeah, that's still on the radar. Just really right now my focus and dedication is
I gotcha.
Getting backlog caught up for all the customers, and getting things moving forward.
That's a great goal to have, and definitely a goal to have. It sounds like you're definitely broke some log jams there with some of this stuff going out the door, and more stuff to coming soon.
Yeah, and in the very near production future, we don't have any big rides that if something holds it up, it takes up literally half to 3/4 of my production area. So, it might take up a quarter, but it helps us keep moving things through.
Well, I'm sure you're learning with everything you built post pandemic. Every time you do something, you learn something.
Yeah.
It's just tough that it happened to you with being so new to the company and being because I know you had such a excitement about things you were going to be doing, sort of moving forward. But it's funny how life happens like that. Now you're kind of focusing on just doing what you've always done, or what Wisdom's always done, as far as putting the rides out and getting the things out the door. And you never thought it would have happened back in the past, I guess.
Yeah, and it's everything happens for a reason. God has his plans. God took care of us through the pandemic, put stuff literally a guy, we just laid off, I would say 85% of our staff. I was walking out the front door and there was a truck sitting out front, and he goes, "Do you own this place?" I was like, "Unfortunately, I do." He's like, "Hey, I got this idea and I know you guys are hurting right now. So let me cash flow this idea and let's get your guys back to work." And that carried us through the pandemic, and
wow.
It was great. God really looked out for us there, and still takes care of us every day. So it's going to be good. We're still here. We're still here for a long time to come, and we'll just wake up every morning, get in the trenches, and do what we need to do.
That's super exciting, and I'm excited for you. I hope for your little trial by fire is coming to an end soon.
Yes, so do I. I've lost enough hair.
I remember when I bought that stupid business. Then there was a pandemic, and
right, yeah,
all these people yelling at me because I couldn't deliver things and order things and get things in the door. So it's I know it's tough. I know it's really tough. We definitely are. Everybody's pulling for you. And Wisdom, which has been around for so long, and is on every midway out there. No, I think the parts especially are going to help a lot, and then putting the rides out is going to help a lot, and then I know you're going to be looking ahead for new things and interesting things to come.
Yeah. We actually have a game plan put together. We have some new rides to reveal at IAPA this year, and they won't be available for immediate delivery, obviously. But
of course, you can get the scoop a week early on amusementwarehouse.com or carnivalwarehouse.com.
Exactly. So, carnivalwarehouse.com is going to have the exclusive preview to it.
That's excellent. Well, believe it or not, we've been talking almost an hour. Do you have anything else to add before we go?
No, just want to, reiterate our appreciation to our customers. I know it's been a difficult time. It's been a difficult couple years. for us, and the patience and working with our customers, and them working with us is greatly appreciated, and we're just doing the best we can, and we're getting stuff out the door.
Well, I think that's the key, is if people know you're trying, you're doing the best you can, they appreciate it in this business, and we'll support you, and especially all the over however many generations you've been supporting them. So
Yeah.
we're thick and thin. I'm sure there's a few times you took some goats or some old popcorn bags instead of money, instead of to deliver something. So one hand washes the other, right?
Very much so. Yeah. Over the years, it's gone both ways.
That's awesome, Jared. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate having you, and best of luck pushing all that stuff out the door.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you, Jared. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Yes.
This podcast is brought to you by Innovative Ticketing, is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Our staff of professionals can guide you through your setup, assist with customer service, even on the weekends when you most need it, and help increase your sales through promotions that work. Innovative Ticketing is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Sign up today at innovativeticketing.com.